Good morning. Firstly, why does my face look so red on this camera? Honestly, it doesn't look this bad in real life. If anything, being an Everton fan, my face is blue. Anyhow, I digress. Welcome to the next thrilling instalment in the best 100 bands of all time, and I've gone obscure again today. When I was a teenager in the 70s, progressive rock was all the rage at my all boys grammar school. These days, although the best of the bands from the 70s are still immensely popular, Pink Floyd, Genesis, as far as music goes, prog rock is very much a niche genre. But it does still exist. And in my view, the finest modern group are Anathema. There will only be three progressive rock groups in my top 100. Anathema are one of them. That's how highly I rate them. They're also one of four bands from Liverpool in the top 100 artists. Some consolation for the town during its tier 3. We'll be in tier 3 by the end of the day anyway. Anyway, among the current members of Anathema are 5 siblings. There are 3 brothers, the Kavanagh brothers, Danny, Vinny and Jamie, and 2 from the Douglas clan. Anathema have actually been around since 1990, but I only latched onto them very recently, the end of 2017. That's not just me being dozy, because in 1990 they were a very different type of band, a very different beast. They are the only band in this book whose most acclaimed album came 28 years, 28 years into their career. In common with another famous Northwest band, which formed in the 90s, at the centre of the band were 2 guitar-playing brothers with an occasionally fractious relationship. Who else could I be thinking of? But here we're talking about Vincent and Daniel Kavanagh. Third brother, Jamie, later joined on bass. I'm pleased to report that in contrast to the Gallaghers, these brothers are now very close. The anger in their early music and continuing tension in their music perhaps stems from what was a dysfunctional family life in working class Liverpool. Reflecting on his mother's death in 1998, Danny said it wasn't the death, it was the 10 years before that. He said she was very, very badly psychiatrically ill, and she was an horrendous alcoholic. But it was because my dad battered her like fuck for 15 years and put her down and persecuted her. Like an episode from The Wire. Danny is a main writer and Vinny is a main male singer, though in the first incarnation of the band, the lead singer was a guy called Darren White, whose signature style was what heavy metal experts will tell you is known as the death growl. This was what was required, as originally they specialised in doom metal, as heard on the first Anathema album, which was called Serenade and released in 1993. Interesting enough to want a brief listen. White left in 1995 and Vincent has been lead singer ever since, pretty much. The group sound evolved gradually. Wikipedia tells me that somewhere along the road the band changed from doom metal to gothic metal, but I've no real idea what the difference between doom metal and gothic metal is. Answers on a postcard, please, because let's face it, right now we won't be getting any postcards from abroad. It's hard to pinpoint when exactly we became a prog rock band then, but some say the Watershed album was 2001's A Fine Day to Exit. By now the drummer was John Douglas, but this album was also the debut of his sister Lee, who at the time was just guesting as a backing vocalist and an occasional lead vocalist, but as a session musician. Danny briefly left the band in 2002, but he was back in 2003. Very soon after, as if to ensure that the band still had even more Kavanas than Douglases in it, Jamie Kavanagh rejoined his brothers in the band. Nonetheless, progress stalled as they failed to release any new material between 2003 and 2010. They didn't have a label for a while there. They never quite split up. They did do occasional dates and release live material. When they got back going properly in 2010, Vinny actually wanted to change the band's name to underline that they were basically a different group now. But Danny's personal life was in turmoil with the pressure of his mother's death and being a new father, which led to him becoming addicted to sleeping pills. Also, he was unhappy and puzzled that the band hadn't had more success. He has cleaned himself up now and has come through on the other side. In 2012 was when the band completed its classic lineup, when it was augmented by keyboard player and drummer Daniel Cardozo, while Lee Douglas became a permanent member. I think Lee Douglas's vocals are the extra magic ingredient. None of the early prog rock bands had female vocalists. A lot of the modern prog rock bands actually do. But her beautiful vocals did add extra versatility, I think, to the band's sound, who now, very much like, for example, Fleetwood Mac, switch between male and female vocalists at whim. They have two fine vocalists. An uncomfortable truth that bothers me, though, is that often personal turmoil leads to great music, and a lot of their best work was written by Danny when he was in emotional struggle. He was having emotional struggles. Could a happy Danny write good songs too? The answer is yes. Very, very affirmative yes. The 2017 album released by Anathema was called The Optimist, and it actually became their most acclaimed album, richly deserving to win Album of the Year at the 2017 Progressive Music Awards. Their music isn't just emotional, it is catchy and beautiful. For my money, in particular, the song Untouchable, in two parts, parts 1 and parts 2, might be the most beautiful song ever written by anybody. It certainly is in my Desert Island discs, along with the Beatles and Springsteen and the Stones, etc. The golden era of prog rock was the early 70s, but Anathema's music offers two extra features which you rarely, if ever, got back. In the 70s. The female vocals, I've already mentioned, but also the electronic sounds. They integrate electronica. Over the years, Anathema did gradually become more popular, make a reasonable living, but they've never made it remotely as big as deserved. It's a mad, mad world. In 2020, they were planning their biggest ever tour. The t-shirts were printed. This is one of them. I bought one online. But the dates on the back of the shirt have all been cancelled. The COVID pandemic struck, of course. At the time of this broadcast, many in the industry are suffering major financial uncertainty. The government have insensitively suggested that musicians try to retrain as other things, cyber artists or whatever. Thank you, government. Thank you for your sensitivity and your help for the music industry. Not. There will the casualties in the music industry, both venues and bands. But Anathema are, tragically, I think, the first band I know of who have actually thrown in the towel. They announced on their website that despite the generosity of fans who bought t-shirts in their droves, and despite having had the best years of their lives in the band, they felt they had no option other than to go on an indefinite hiatus. But listen to this playlist, please, found on Spotify, an hour of Anathema, and you will surely join me in hoping for a reunion as soon as possible.